Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we're taking a look at a Dreyse light rifle, or a Dreyse model of 1907 carbine. A couple different names for the same gun. As best I can tell, it doesn't really have a formal designation. There's nothing written on the gun, and there's no really good nomenclature in the very little documentation that exists on this carbine. What we do know is these were manufactured by the Rheinmetall company, which at the time was tied to Dreyse, and Dreyse was an industrialist financier who had ties to a lot of gun designers and gun companies, and in particular, Louis Schmeisser worked as his chief engineer and designer. So it was actually Schmeisser who designed this little carbine, also designed the Dreyse 1907 pistols. If you're going to try and search for information on the carbine, you will get a lot of information on the pistols, because the pistols are also the model of 1907. And in fact, they are absolutely related. They have a lot of similarities. They break open in the same way. They pretty much operate in the same way as well. Now, the carbine here itself, there's very little information about them out there, to the point of I couldn't even guarantee exactly what the year was. I've seen 1905, 1906. The most common designation is 1907. I haven't found any good information on how many were made, although it certainly wasn't all that many. This would qualify as not a commercial success. As for use, I've seen one source that says these were used by the police in Saxony prior to World War I. Haven't found any confirmation of that, and honestly, I'm a little dubious of this being a police gun. It just doesn't seem like it has the finish and the furniture and the styling of a typical police gun. Now, it's possible that they manufactured a bunch of these and found themselves unable to sell them and offered the batch to the police at a really good price. Maybe something like that happened. To me, this is really primarily like a small game, little short-range hunting rifle, sort of a garden rifle type of thing. I should mention this is chambered for 7.65 Browning, aka 32ACP. It's this really cute little pistol cartridge. Has a detachable magazine, holds 6 rounds, and just a simple blowback action. So why don't we go ahead and take a closer look at the gun itself. I'll show you how it comes apart and the similarities to the 1907 pistols, and then we're gonna go out and put some ammunition through it. So there are at least 2 different styles of markings on these carbines. This one is simply marked Rheinmetall. That's it, which doesn't tell you a whole lot. However, there are a number of other examples out there that are marked Dreyse and then Rheinmetall Sommerda. So we know they are Dreyse carbines, although this one isn't marked that way. The only other markings we're going to find on here are a pair of German imperial proof marks here on the right side of the receiver. That's a crown over N, and that was the German proof mark that was used from 1891 until 1939. There's another one on the top of the bolt block there. So this doesn't really tell us anything about the dates that these were manufactured. Controls are very simple. We have a safety right here. Forward is fire, rearward is safe. We have a magazine release on the very bottom, so you push that forward and you can pull out the magazine. This is, interestingly, a double stack magazine. This is compatible with basically nothing else. It kind of looks like some Bergmann magazines, which does actually make sense given that Dreyse was very much involved with the Bergmann pistols as well. Schmeisser, of course, designed them. So these are pretty scarce magazines to find, and they're an unusual and interesting style of magazine for a carbine like this. We have a nice checkered grip, very small, low-profile forend, very basic fixed sights, just a simple notch in the rear, and a post in the front. We do have sling swivels on the gun, which would be kind of typical for a civilian sporting gun. I think this would make a very nice little brush rabbit sort of gun. And then lastly, for disassembly, we have this button on the side, and if you push that button, the gun breaks open. With it broken open here, you can see the sear that is going to drop down when you pull the trigger, and then comes back up. So semi-auto only. And then to take out the bolt, all you have to do is pull it forward or pull it backward, lift up, and it comes right out. Inside of this, we have a striker back here. You can see the firing pin coming back. And when the striker is cocked, it does protrude out the back of the bolt face, and you can very clearly see that from the outside of the gun. The rest of this is here basically just to provide mass. Since this is a simple blowback gun, the more mass you have, the longer it stays closed, and you just have to balance that to have the right amount of mass and spring tension behind it to open the gun in the proper time frame. I should also point out this little fin here. We actually have two springs in the bolt. This one in front is the actual recoil spring, and there's one in the back here that is the striker spring. So when you have this locked in the gun, this, you can see that compresses like so, that acts as the recoil spring. And that fin is held in place in that little slot right behind the ejector. So when the gun is, when the whole thing is hinged closed, that locks this fin in place, which forces the recoil spring to compress every time you fire. Now, just for comparison's sake, we have the carbine hinged open, and if we take a look at the pistol, there is a latch on the back of the pistol. Push that to the side, and the pistol also hinges open, like so. And the pistol also has a very similar operating mechanism, where it's just simple blowback with a long, basically a mass up here attached to the bolt. And there's that. And when it's cocked, you can see this extending out the back to tell you that it is cocked. All right, let's take this out to the range. So first off, just to point out how simple disassembly is, I can pull the bolt out without even having to set the gun down on the ground. So if there was a bore obstruction or I wanted to check anything, clean anything, very easy to do. And now it's back assembled and ready to go. So the magazine holds 6 cartridges. If you put in 5, you can seat it successfully with the bolt closed. With 6 rounds, I can't. However, that's not really important, because once the magazine is seated, you actually can't run the bolt back. The bolt gets caught on on the top cartridge. So in order to load it, you do actually have to pull the bolt back, seat the magazine, and then drop the bolt. So now it's ready to fire. You can see that we have our the firing pin, or the striker, sticking out the back. That acts as a very obvious cocking indicator. And 32ACP coming out of a barrel this long is really quite remarkably quiet, which is pretty cool. Like I said, I believe this is actually a hunting rifle, something for small game, rabbits, that sort of thing. And it would be a very pleasant gun to shoot without ear protection, as they did at the time, compared to anything larger. Now, one thing, in fact, let me empty the magazine, and then I'll show you a safety tip with this rifle. All right, now, notice that the cocking indicator comes out back here. Don't put your thumb right here, or you will get, or the cocking indicator will hit your thumbnail and break a part of it off and hurt. Don't ask me how I found that out. Magazine release is on the bottom, and pull that out. Do one more magazine. I did it again.
You will learn.
So, thumb over here on the side. That's important. Oh, one little malfunction. Very pleasant little gun to shoot, as long as you don't shoot your freaking thumb with it. Jeez. Anyway, handy, light, obviously very low recoil, relatively quiet, which is something we don't think about today, because we have it totally ingrained in us to always wear ear protection. But of course, that wasn't the case back in the day. So, very cool little gun. So whatever the original purpose of these guns, they are today both quite rare and actually quite a lot of fun to shoot, as long as you're careful of your thumb. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you do like seeing this sort of thing on the net, I would hope you would consider taking a look at my Patreon account. It is folks supporting me there for $1 a month or more if you like the perks that are available. It's those folks that make it possible for me to travel to places like Sweden, where I am right now, to bring you cool guns like this one. Thanks for watching.